It's Florida Daily TV, brought to you by FloridaDaily.com. For all your news on politics, business, and education, it's FloridaDaily.com. Now, here's your host, Ed Dean.
Welcome to another edition of Florida Daily TV. I am your host, publisher of FloridaDaily.com, Ed Dean. Let's get to it. Business writer Matt Schellenberg for FloridaDaily.com, former Jacksonville City Councilman, and our other good friend, legal commentator for the Florida Daily and also the Florida Radio Network, our legal columnist as well, Ron Davis. Matt, I want to get to a lot here. There's a COVID liability bill going right now through the State House. I want to get to some national issues. It is the trial lawyers versus the business community. We've had this debate. A lot of my good, even conservative trial lawyers, buddy, say the business community is just, this is something like they're making up out of thin air. There are not these pressing lawsuits, but we've been told there's about 400 to 500 lawsuits dealing with COVID about whether or not that a business actually apply protection and things like that. Is it impossible for the business community and the trial lobby to be able to work together?
I don't think so. I think that they see an opportunity. And quite frankly, when you shut down a business and they're trying to actually make payroll, pay the rent, pay the electricity, I don't understand what the lawyers are trying to do to damage the
Right.
businesses going forward. They're already being inundated with new rules all the time at Tallahassee, as well as being restricted on what they can do. I think DeSantis has done a good job. A lot of friends said we shouldn't be opening up with no mask and things like that. But here we walked in, I got the vaccine 2 doses, but I'm being cautious also,
Right.
as a lot of people are.
You know, we've had the trial lobby on here before. You, of course, as the legal commentator on radio and legal analyst, some of your friends and good guys, but they say this is much to do about nothing. This is a red herring, almost a prelude for tort reform.
Well, it is, and I think there's such a desperation in the business community to get the Republicans to pass some form of tort reform, and they're using this. I think it is a red herring. I'm not aware of any flood of lawsuits in Florida where someone is suing a business owner because they contracted COVID. This is about limiting. What they really want is a preemptive strike to say this is where the damages should be maxed out. Someone shouldn't get any more than this. I think it's a lot stronger to argue that maybe you put a little higher burden on the plaintiff to prove that they actually got COVID from the restaurant.
So you don't support the COVID liability protection some of the Republicans are pushing out there then, do you?
No, because I think the Republicans are getting tort reform completely wrong to begin with.
Matt, what do you think?
You think it's mostly the waiters and waitresses and the cooks that are going to be the suing of the restaurants that are open, or the people that actually go to the restaurants that make that choice to go to the restaurant and get COVID? Who are they representing? And quite frankly, if the trial lawyers go to court with this, they'll lose a lot of credibility, because I think people are thinking, why are you suing businesses that are having a tough time right now, that were told to shut down, and people on their own either came to work or didn't come to work, and a lot of them are not showing up to work because the workman's or the unemployment benefits are much better than actually going to work. So I'm not quite sure how this all plays out.
The business community is worried about attorneys who are going to file lawsuits on behalf of clients, knowing that the businesses
Who's the clients, though? Who would be a client?
It could be the employees, and it could be the customers. What they're worried about is not being able to afford the litigation and defend themselves, and then having to settle these cases at nuisance value. It's really the real problem with tort and tort reform is this theory that people have to do that. Plaintiffs' attorneys are going to be very cautious about pursuing these, not because there's a moral issue, but because the experts required to prove this type of case are going to be different, because you're going to actually have to hire medical experts. You're going to have to hire epidemiologists. It's going to require at least 2 experts to prove that you got, first of all, that you had COVID.
Right.
Secondly, that you got it from this restaurant.
But hold on, wait a second. What
it's
if
going to be almost an impossible burden.
But what if for those of you that are married, husband and wife, here we go. We came down with COVID. We think we got it back. I'm going to take the husband's word. But unless you find anybody else who can be a witness, is it just my word against yours?
Well, and that highlights the problem and the burden that the plaintiff's bar is going to have in these cases. Business owners should have liability insurance. The liability insurance is going to cover this. Maybe they need to lower their deductibles if they're that worried about the cash outflow and where they have that.
Real quick, hold on, Matt. You and others have said you think this is nothing more than a prelude to tort reform. Why is that?
Because the business community has been leaning so hard on the Republicans to do this. I think the Republicans want to pass some sort of, run it up the flag type bill to see if it can get through, and work out some of the kinks before they get to the larger measure.
Matt, you know what? Hold on. Before you make your comment, what I've heard from listeners, from those that read FloridaDaily.com, they say, and they say this as an analysis, that you guys are like the Democrats creating this, like, for example, we don't need $1.9 trillion stimulus. Let's just get money to the checks. We don't need all these money spent on the arts and transportation, make it all COVID related. That the Democrats are taking advantage of making something out of thin air that they need to fund this project, but it has nothing to do with COVID. They're saying that the business community, to Ron's point, is almost doing the same thing to take advantage of it from a COVID outbreak, that you don't need to really have passing this type of measure, but it's a great way to start the ball going now with tort reform, because they seem to haven't been able to get anything done over the past several years.
Well, help me out. The Republicans control the Senate and the House. If they really had the power to do this, Republicans only,
right,
they should be able to do this, because DeSantis would most likely sell it. But now we're in now the political world that people are being running for office in 2 years, at least in the House and the Senate, and then you have the governor's race coming up.
Right.
So all these things come into play going forward. And I think the Republicans are concerned about people like Morgan & Morgan and all these big tort reformers that they're going to back somebody like Nikki Fried, and that's how she got elected. She got money from that group, and she was able to do it from an unknown. She was really an unknown when she got in the race, and she basically ran a 90-day race and won.
Yeah, good point. This is my question I keep asking, because I want to get to a lot of other issues here in a few moments. This is the question. The CDC puts out a guideline. The guideline is not set in stone, correct? It's a guideline. The states don't have to abide by it. I keep asking this question. Florida, since COVID last year, has not instituted by way of a state statute or a measure of what has to be done, except for the Department of Professional Business Regulation, which could be another debate of how do you go after them, or are they set in stone. For example, if they haven't come out and it hasn't been a state statute that says mask 6 feet, 3 feet, you must have this, double mask, you got to be so much occupied, then what do you sue them over if it's not set as a statute that's already in place?
You've highlighted exactly the hurdle.
Okay.
What the business community, again, is worried about is litigation cost settlements. They can't afford the $5,000 or $6,000 nuisance value payments, right? That's really what they're worried about, is we're trying to keep the door open. We can't afford to hire a lawyer, and I get that argument. But it's part of a larger picture. The problem is the bill that the Republicans are drafting and proposing as it relates to the COVID relief only limits the maximum that somebody can get. It's a bill it's a fluffy bill. It does nothing to prevent the problem that the business community is worried about.
By the way, Matt, the bill's only 3 pages long. Usually I'm expecting to see something 20 pages long.
Like the COVID relief bill, which is 500 and some odd pages. Quick question. I had a nuisance lawsuit back 20 years ago, and the insurance company said I was right, but to get rid of it, they paid this person off. And it affected my insurance a little bit, and I was willing to pay the deductible, but they go, it's not worth it. We're just going to pay her off and move forward. And this is what concerns me about. I see all these ads on TV and radio all the time with these tort lawyers, and I'm just amazed to me. They always tell me how much money they make, but I'm always curious on how much the actual plaintiff actually got.
Let me ask, but here's an interesting question that, for example, when I have to travel, whether it's Orlando or Tallahassee, except for maybe a few ads, Matt, I haven't really seen any ads out there, whether it's the Fair and Ferris, the Morgans, the Herald, whoever, about COVID. It's mostly about a car wreck or a death in the family, but nothing COVID related. Does Ron have a point from the lobby side, the trial lobby, by saying a lot of this is manufactured by the business community because we don't see these ads out there left and right about COVID?
Well, I will address it slightly differently. I think their business is not as strong as it was when the economy is good. A lot of people stayed home, so a lot of people didn't get injured as much. So what you're finding is trying to find an area where they can grow the business, okay? Because clearly for 9 months, 7 months, whatever, there wasn't people on the road except, that's why I mentioned restaurants. Restaurants during this process went forward with 2550, but it wasn't so much a state statute. But in Duval County, the mayor said wear a mask, right, and that was applicable. It wasn't a statute. It was just I guess an enforcement. I'm not quite sure who's enforcing these things because I've been
other
at
counties. Don't have.
I have been in many places, Home Depot specifically, that people aren't wearing masks, and that's.
Let's go to another issue. I want to talk about what's coming up next? Gun control. You covered a lot of this as a legal commentator. I want to talk about the business.
Yeah.
Let's kind of do, as we say, a rapid fire. Democrats over the next couple of weeks. I mean, this is like a construction project. This guy's got his advice, that advice. They got several bills. They've got them where if you want to own a gun, Ron, you've got to buy. You got to buy liability from the federal government. You got some Democrats out there that want to make you go through a psychological evaluation, and ready for this, that now they want to sit back and say, hey, man, we're going to take Matt out hunting. He doesn't get the proper gun, but he wants to borrow a gun. Underneath the measures out there, I've got to have a background check just to borrow a gun to go hunting. And what bothers me, we used to laugh at this back in the day. I'm not laughing anymore with the Dems running the House and the Dems running the Senate.
5717, which hasn't yet come up. It's been the one that's been pending for about 3 years now. And I've had a lot of people ask me over the last couple of years, do we need to worry? Do we need to worry? Well, in the Trump era, with Republicans controlling the House and the Senate, or at least one branch, we didn't. Going into the election season, I wasn't worried. Now, you've hit the nail exactly on the head. That's the big one. That's the assault-style weapon ban. That's the one that taxes the ammunition. So what we're seeing now are some precursor bills, and I think they're testing the waters to see what they can get through the Senate. Because there's two senators. You got Manchin, and then why am I drawing a blank on the other moderate senator?
Out of Arizona,
yeah. That are they're testing the water with them to see how far I think they can push them on these guns. And then if they think they can push 5717, that's the big one that's coming down the pike.
My understanding is that those two bills, I haven't read them, they actually passed the House today.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know exactly what they're saying.
So do you think it'll pass the Senate?
Okay, I just can't believe there's enough Democratic senators in some of these Western states that are going to allow this to happen. And I think you hit the nail on the head. That if I want to go, for instance, I wanted to go to that
Go hunt,
NRA fundraiser, and I would have to borrow a gun. That means I have to have a background check, which I did.
What are they going to do? Swipe your driver's license or something?
I don't know. And by the way, they're overwhelmed, so I might not be able to get the answer for like 7 days.
So here's I think let me combine this with stimulus spending, also with the teachers doing the shutdown. If you're going to get it done, you might as well get it done now, because as you know, school now in the month of March is going to end coming up in May. It's going to start back up. The teachers unions want to kick this down the road. I got news for you. The suburban women that didn't vote for Trump aren't going to be voting for the Democrats. Do you think Republicans will remind voters of what's being pushed for some of the gun control? And, as I say, let's combine it together, the stimulus package. I mean, no one's going to itch and complain. Republicans have just dropped the ball on being the guardianship of spending out there. Now it's going to be, okay, you spent it on the arts when you should have been spending on really COVID relief. I think that may hurt the Democrats coming up in 2022.
Well, and I think they're worried they're going to lose the House and the Senate. So what you're going to see is they're not going to make the same mistakes they made during the first 2 years of Obama. I think they had that feeling of invincibility, that they're going to control both House and the Senate for a while, and they slow played a lot of the issues. They panicked on Obamacare at the end of the day. I don't think they're going to make that mistake, and they're also looking at the mistake the Republicans made the first 2 years of Trump's presidency, not getting things done that they wanted to.
Correct.
Democrats feel like they dodged a bullet. Ends justify the means. And they don't care of what happens 2 years from now as long as they get what they want.
Right. Matt,
now.
as a business writer with Florida Daily, you cover a lot, because I know you text me all the time about my morning show. This was from the Wall Street Journal, and I'm like, what a great point, and about business. And there was an article, I think, from the Wall Street Journal or it might have been thehill.com, where I know, for example, John Hilsenrath, he sat back from the Wall Street Journal, economics editor, sat back and said, first off, this is bogus Bernie Sanders, if I can use those initials, about what happened with the stimulus bill. Most of the states didn't have a downturn. They had a downturn, but they got so much stimulus money last year that they didn't need another big bailout. The CBO, Congressional Budget Office, says, hey, technically it only hurt the economy about $600 billion. Why do we need 1.9? You got Treasury Secretary officials that work for Obama administration going, this should be just direct payments. We don't need to be spending money for the arts. On a stimulus side, I have to assume, instead of saying, because Trump spent quite a few trillion as well, instead of saying, hey, they spent all the trillions out there, I think if Republicans make a wise attack against the Democrats, it will be, they spent money on the arts, prisoners getting stimulus checks, and remember that? What about us that didn't do that? I think that really nails Democrats.
I don't know if the prisoners getting the money, but I can tell you them getting the vaccine before everybody else
that too
is going to be detrimental. But I'm not sure that we're going to be taking over the Senate, because right now there's 6 Republicans that decided not to run.
Right.
Okay. So you're going to win those back. And
plus, you got to win Georgia and a couple other ones. Yeah.
And I don't see anybody.
How about the House? But do you think what I laid out about? Okay, listen. Even though it's going to be a year and a half down the road. Again, they passed this bill early. Maybe voters may or may not remember a stimulus. But if I'm running for office, I'm going to let people know those checks that should have came to you, and most likely the economy is going to do much better by then. They went to there, but they didn't come to your back pocket.
Well, most of the predictions that I see, that the economy is going to grow 6 to 7%.
That's what they're saying this year, yeah.
Third, and fourth quarter. And then you're trying to get the money going forward. I think we can win the middle class because what you're going to have is inflation. You always see it in gas. You see it in home construction. You can see it in food. I don't care what the federal government says. People are being impacted by the increase in the day-to-day functions.
We'll get to the gas in a second. Real quick, would you agree out of all of these, not to push one group or the other, but of all of these, the Republicans do better? I think they do better among women with the school closures if the unions come back, which are hand in hand with the Democrats, if they come back and say, well, I don't know, by this September, August, I'm not too sure we're ready to open back up. I think that's going to become fresh in the voters' mind. That's going to hurt Democrats in 2022.
But look at where the unions are really the strongest. Chicago or Illinois, New York and California, we've lost those and we'll never get them back. The other unions, teachers unions, they're not as strong. Florida, they opened them back up. We have a poor leadership here, but the actual unions are not as powerful in Florida as they are in other places.
Who's stronger, the trial lobby or the teachers unions? How you like that one?
Right now, I think for education, it's the teachers union by
Right
far.
now, it's the teachers union.
Yes.
This
hurts us tremendously. And why do you think we're in Duval County? Why do you think people are moving to St. Johns County? 95% of the time, it's because of the education they get down there.
Real quick, I want to get to gas prices.
Yeah.
If the gun bill passes both the House and Senate, there will be challenges. What's your take on this in court?
Oh yeah, it'll be challenged almost immediately as unconstitutional.
And what do you think? Because of the Trump appointees, it'll go down.
Well, ultimately, it's going to depend on how the bill shapes out and what regulations they have. As worded right now, it probably would fail.
What would fail?
Well, as worded now, what they're currently trying to do, the transfer, not being able to.
Right.
See, if you restrict an ability to transfer a firearm, the regular, ordinary that have not been subject to issues before, that's the same as saying a total ban. If you get in the way of the transfer, that's the same thing as saying a total ban. So I do think the Supreme Court precedent, I think some of what you're seeing in the Circuit Court precedent, that bill's going to have a hard time flying through.
Okay, you have a quick question. I'm sorry. If you sell a firearm from Florida to Georgia, they might have an argument with the Commerce Clause. But if you're selling within the state, that's not. I don't think that they have a leg to stand on. I think there's a clear distinction between interstate commerce and intrastate selling. Don't you think they'll make that distinction?
Well, I hope not. I don't want them to make that distinction.
I hope not, but they could very well do that. If you're selling something across state lines.
Not the makeup of this court. I don't see them going that route.
Jump around. Gasoline prices. We had a former energy secretary, I think David Briette, under former President Trump, says expect gasoline by April, he says. Now, $3 a gallon, do you think it's going to go to $4 a gallon this year under Biden?
I'm not sure it's going to go under $4 a gallon this year or next year. I think you're going to see it probably top out about $3.25. They can't go into an election cycle with gas prices being this high. What we're seeing is a remake of the Obama administration, correct? And their policies as it related to gas was to keep it as high as possible so they could develop alternative forms of energy. The Biden administration has the problem that the shale industry is already ready to go. Once that price of oil gets back up, high 2s, low 3s, it becomes profitable, and it's going to drive the price back down.
You cover this. What do you think?
I don't. Interesting enough, OPEC had a chance last week to increase the flow, and they decided no.
Right.
And you can see the impact going forward. Just last week or three days ago, I bought gas for $2.60. It's $2.85. So it is going to hit $3 within, I think, 30, 60 days, maybe sooner. It's all because this is impacting the middle and poor people that have not efficient cars. And this is what, in spite of the fact that it's a one-time $1,400 for a lot of these people, it's not a permanent thing. What is going to help the poor is that unemployment through September, I think, and they're cutting that off in September. At that point, you're going to see, oh my gosh, I got some money. I was able to survive. What am I going to do now? And what they're going to see is the food is more expensive, gas is more expensive, electricity is more expensive, maintenance of the car.
But the question is, do you believe gasoline prices are going to go up?
Yes.
To $4 this year?
No.
What do you think it's going? What do you think it's going? He says 3.25. What do you think it tops at?
$3.25, $3.40, $3.50. And that's enough to scare people.
Okay, where are we at throughout the state? Where are we at, right? Because it went down in February, and they came back up in Florida. Remember?
It was only temporary, but it's $2.85 now. At
Okay.
least it was when I made a turn.
It's $2.85. It's March. We haven't even hit the summer months. And by the way, one of the reasons why, let's be honest here, one of the reasons why gasoline prices are up because more people on the road, right?
That's correct.
But
And they were on the road today.
Right. Now you got Easter coming up. Now you say what's your higher end for this year?
I said 320, 340, 350.
340. You say 3.25.
Wait a second. The other thing that you have to look at
He may be over, but he may be close to it.
You got airlines that aren't burning the fuel, and then pretty soon people are going to start flying again, second and third quarter. So all that going forward, they don't use the gasoline. They use some kind of.
But I got to tell you something, Matt. You and I follow the trends here at FloridaDaily.com. We do big stories on what the tourism field, and I got to tell you something. 1 week it's not everybody's going to show up to Florida in spring break. Wall Street Journal says, hey, everybody's looking to go up to Florida on spring break. Everybody may be traveling, then they may not be traveling. It's not the media. I don't know who to believe half the time.
I had to go down to off of 210 today, 95 and 210. I've never seen it so busy. Now, this is a residential area, and I was trying to go about 5 miles west. Man, that was traffic. This is at 9 o'clock in the morning. This is not going to work.
You're going to be giving up your truck when it goes 325, 350? You look at the guy's scooter?
No, my hunting lease is a lot closer.
I know the hunting lease is a lot closer. Another issue with a couple of minutes left. Two big issues that are coming around. Touch upon this very briefly. Two economic issues. The guns, I'm with you on that. HR 1, by the way, the voting thing on that's another big one, is infrastructure. If you thought the 1.9 was a Christmas tree, the starting cost under Biden for the infrastructure, we've covered this before, $2 trillion, and that will be loaded even more. That'll go higher. And yet, what is this?
It won't get down to $2 trillion.
It'll go higher?
No, it's going to lower.
Really?
Yes,
Does it happen this year?
In the fall.
Okay,
September, November. Because the Democrat, it's an election cycle, they want to get it done this year.
I agree. Real quick. Tax hikes coming around the corner. Does the wealth tax pass? I mean, they're going to do something about Trump's tax cuts. They're not going to.
They're not going to get it done this year.
No tax. What do you think? Infrastructure this year and tax hikes?
I think they're going to get what they want for infrastructure. I think this last vote on the stimulus proves that the Democrats have the clout to get monetary things through without Republican support.
Do the Republicans go along with it? Because there will be pork barrel spending.
No, because it's going to be low. Just like this last one. I was reading a report today, and it's absolutely shocking. It's one of those. It's like Obamacare all over again. You got to pass it to find out what's in it. There's a provision in there that it's incredibly racist. If you are a minority farmer, you're going to have things paid off. You're going to have your loans taken. You're getting benefits because of the color of your skin. Meanwhile, the white farmers aren't getting anything. And it's almost like a mini reparations type thing. But these are the things, as they become known, it's going to create some problems.
Hold on. I got to get running here. Hold on. You say infrastructure, yes or no for this year?
I say infrastructure, yes.
They're
going to get what they want.
He said $2 trillion. Do you think it's going to be $2 trillion?
I just said yes, and I think they're going to get what they want.
I think it's going to go well beyond $2 trillion. Here's the question. What will Republicans do? Got to brag about it. Something for the election.
Okay, the problem with Republicans, what is their platform going forward?
Well, I don't know. I was asking about the infrastructure.
I know, and this is my point. What are they for? And I think they should actually come out with an infrastructure bill. I think they had 2 years to do it under Trump, and they never got it done. I don't understand it. Clearly, if you've been on 95 and a lot of the federal roads, they need to be maintained, and they have not been maintained.
You would agree that this one will be much more of a Christmas tree than the COVID?
Yes. No, I tell you, the other one is Christmas tree is reducing student debt $10,000.
Yeah. I'll give credit for Biden. I won't give him credit for much, but I'll give him credit for holding them on that one. Good rapid fire. Matt Schellenberg.
Thank you very much.
Have to talk to his agent these days just to get him on with this.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, Matt Schellenberg, a former Jacksonville City Councilman.
The same amount of money I did.
And business writer for FloridaDaily.com. Kind of hangs out with us on the radio show as well. Attorney Ron Davis, legal commentator, and also legal columnist for FloridaDaily.com. Another edition of Florida Daily TV. I'm your host, Ed Dean, right here on FloridaDaily.com.